Hello and welcome. It's Brad McDowell here, Senior Privileged Cloud Consultant here in Australia. And today I'll be taking you through the DPA Connector Install along with the HTML5 Gateway configuration, and we'll cover some simple use cases such as vaulted credentials using the DPA Connector. And here are the objectives. So today I'll take you through the architecture overview of how DPA fits into the existing Privileged Cloud environment. We'll then install the DPA connectors on two of our Windows connector servers, and then we'll reconfigure our existing HTML5 gateway to use the new DPA HTML5 gateway service. We'll then cover the importance of the TLS certificates and why we need to use them, and we'll demonstrate on what to look out for when things fail. And then, as I said before, we'll connect to some targets using vaulted credentials using DPA. DPA can connect to databases, SSH, and use zero standing privileges to targets. We won't cover that in this video. I'll do it in a separate one. Finally, I'll test an end user accessing DPA to access a target using vaulted credentials. So here's the architecture diagram of Privileged Cloud, and what I want to focus on is the DPA here. So this is new. We've covered all the other services on the Windows Connector server in a previous video. So DPA is a new service that sits on top of, that will sit alongside the other CyberArk services. You could put DPA on a separate server altogether. There's nothing wrong with that. But in my lab, we're just going to put it on the same server. The DPA service initiates an outbound connection to Privileged Cloud on port 443, and that helps us create a connection from the HTML5 gateway to the target load balancer or PSM server once it goes through this. Today, if you've already got a HTML5 gateway set up, previously we did this via the secure tunnel, achieving the same kind of outcome, but the new modern way is using the DPA connector. And we can also use the DPA to connect to targets directly using RDP, SSH, and so on. And I'll leave it there. Let's head over to the lab and get this configured. So here we are in the lab again, and before we install DPA, first we'll consider the network requirements. I'll put a link to this in the description, but you'll need to consider the various URLs that need to be opened from the connector servers out to the internet. And at the moment, in my lab environment, I can't see the DPA icon here, and that's because I don't have access to that role. So first we'll switch over to Identity Administration, and we'll open up roles here, and there's a role called DPA Admin. We'll go to Members, and by default it's the first administrator that will have access to this. I will add a new member here, and we'll just put in Brad for now. Now that that's done, what we need to do is log off and log on again, and we'll see the icon in the application switcher. And I'm logged back in, and now I can see the application switcher here, and we can see dynamic privilege access. And now that we're in here, I'd like to set up the connectors first. So we'll go to connectors on the left here, and we'll add a pool. We'll be focusing on the on-premises targets, so I'm going to select all platforms down the bottom here. We'll hit next. We'll give this a name. I'll give it the same for the description. And this part's important. We'll put in the domain for the environment. And for my environment, it's the following. And for the logical name, I'll put in the same thing. We'll hit create. And now we have our pool created. I'll just expand this out, and you can see we've got no connectors in the pool. So let's add a connector, and we'll select on-premises. We'll select the pool that we created just before. We're going to deploy Windows connector servers. This will generate a script that will run on the two connector servers. So on connector server 1 here, we'll open PowerShell as admin and run the script. I'll do the same on connector server 2. So over on connector server 2, we'll open up PowerShell again as administrator. and I'll switch back to the workstation, and we'll close this, and then we can see our two connector servers are here. Next, I'll go down to settings on the left hand side here, and in the settings I'd like to change one setting, and down here under video recording we'll turn this on. That way sessions are recorded when we use DPA. We'll talk about TLS certificate validation a little bit later in the video, but for now I'll hit apply. Now I'll switch back to Privilege Cloud. And what I'll touch on next is, in a previous video we set up the HTML5 Gateway workflow here. So I'm talking about the in-browser mode. So when we connect currently in this lab bar, the browser mode, we'll see up in the address bar here this format of the URL. This is the legacy method of how we connect to the HTML5 Gateway. And what we'll do next in the video is just change this to using DPA to improve our connectivity. So I'll just close this. And what we'll do is we'll go down to Administration, Configuration Options, and expand our Privilege Session Management, Configure PSM Servers, and we have our servers here. You'll also find under Configure PSM Gateway Servers, there might be two here. You might only see one depending on the age of your tenant. So at the moment I'm using the legacy method, which is Gateway, but the new method is this Gateway here. So if we click on that, we can see that here, and we can see in the connection detail, it's got the new URL format in here. So that's what we need. So we'll just copy this. And if you've never set up the HTML5 Gateway before, you'll have you won't see the PSM Gateway here. So I'm just going to delete it as if you've never set this up. And so we go, so I've deleted that, and what we do is we right click on each of the PSM servers and we go add PSM Gateway, and then we paste in our new HTML5 Gateway here. So I'll just apply that, and I'll do the same for the other server. So I could just update this or delete it and recreate it. It doesn't really matter. So we'll hit apply on that. And I like to do the same thing on the load balancer, even though it doesn't matter in this case. So I'll hit apply on that one as well. And that has updated. So I'll just go to connector server 1, and I'll just open up services. And just to speed things up, I'll just restart the PSM service to refresh the configuration. Currently I have this platform pointing at connector server 1, just so you're aware. So we'll hit connect again, and we'll connect to DC1. Now this will fail on the first connection, and I want to show you the type of errors that you might encounter and how to address them. So here we got an error has occurred here, and you got some information here, but I know exactly what has caused this error. So we'll just close this, and we'll head back to the DPA portal. And over in the DPA portal, I know it's a certificate issue, but you can go to the session diagnostics here, and we can see the failed connection that we've just had, and we can see that the certificate has failed. So that is a handy way to figure out that something's gone wrong, or why something's gone wrong. But another way you can verify it is definitely the certificate is we go to settings here on the left hand side, and if I scroll down to the bottom, I'll temporarily turn this setting off. Now, in a production environment, you definitely want to leave this turned on, because we want to, the reason why we want to have the certificate validation enabled is to ensure that CyberArk is connecting to a known host, and we're not handing over or entering credentials into a rogue target that might be harvesting credentials. So I'll just turn this off temporarily and test it again. So I'll go back over to Privilege Cloud, and we'll make another connection. So as we can see, that's connected. So it definitely was a certificate issue. So next I'll show you how to apply the certificate. There are two ways that we can grab the certificate. We could go to the connector server 1 here in this case, and if we open up the local certificates, we can go to the personal store, and in here we will have the certificate we created in a previous video. This is a certificate that had the load balancer host name and the two connector host names in it. And I'll just quickly show you where that link was, how we created that. So in a previous video, we used this command to create that self-signed certificate with a 4096-bit key length. And then we use this command here to apply that to the remote desktop services interface or listener. I'll leave this in the description along with the timestamp of when we set this up in a previous video. So I'll just open this up and go to the details tab. And what I mean by that is in the subject alternative name here, we have the two server names along with the load balancer. So I'll copy this to a file, and we need to do a base64 format. Before I do that, I'll mention we don't want the private key. We'll do a base64 format. And I'll just leave this on the desktop. Cool, and I'll just go to the desktop on this server, and we'll copy that back over to the workstation. And I'll put it in this location. So another way we can get this certificate, I'd like to do this from a Linux server. We use the OpenSSL s_client-connect, and then our target machine, so con1 in this case, .au on port 3389. So this will result in the certificate that you have, so we can just simply copy this certificate, put that in a notepad file and name it as a .cer file, and it will be the same thing. So that's another way you can get the certificate of the target. And that's how DPA validates the target we're connecting to. So back over in the lab, we'll switch back to DPA and we'll go to TLS Certificates. And we'll add a certificate. And we'll go back to the folder we put it in. And here's the certificate here. I'll give it the same name and tag. And that's getting uploaded now. I'll go back to the settings and we'll re-enable the TLS certificate validation check. That's turned on and we'll hit apply. I'll go back to Privilege Cloud and we'll hit connect. And that's working correctly. We're now using the HTML5 Gateway via the DPA connectors. So I'll just disconnect this server and go back to DPA. And next, I want to demonstrate some of the other DPA features. And today I'll only focus on the Vaulted Credentials, and I'll cover zero standing privileges in a separate video. So we'll go over here to Connection Guidance. And as I said just before, zero standing privileges we'll do separately. So today I'll just do Vaulted Credentials. And the SSH and database use case, again, I'll do in a separate video, but we'll just keep the use case simple. So we want to connect onto a target using the target user of brad.admin. And the FQDN of the target address is DC1 in this case. And we'll put in our target domain. For this use case, I don't need to put in a logical network because the system will work out based on the FQDN which pool to use for the DPA servers. If I was connecting to an IP address, you would need to select your logical network to ensure you're using the correct DPA servers. We'll download the RDP file. I won't connect just yet. I'll just open up this folder. And if I open up this with Notepad++, we can see the details of what's inside this RDP file. We're connecting to the DPA servers over port 443, not the RDP 3389. And we're using this connection string to get to our target. You can use this information to put in your favorite RDP client, but today I'll just use the default Windows RDP client. And we'll connect to this. And we'll enter in our password. And I'll just use SMS to speed up the MFA. And as you can see here, we've got a certificate validation error because we haven't added the TLS certificate for the DC1 that we're trying to connect to. Now, in an enterprise environment, you'd put in your domain root certificate and intermediate certificates, but I don't have a CA in this environment. So what we'll do is we'll go back to this server here, and we'll clear the screen, and we'll connect on to DC1 and grab our certificate. So this is a certificate for the DC1. I'll just copy that. And we'll dc1.cert, and we'll create a file called dc1.cer. And if we close that and save it, and we open up that downloads directory, here's the TLS certificate that is listing on port 3389 on the DC. So we'll head back to DPA and we'll go to TLS Certificates, and we'll add a certificate for the DC1, which is in our downloads, and we'll just call this DC1, and we'll add that. So this certificate is expiring soon, that's why it's got this icon here. And if we go back to our downloads directory and reconnect to that same connection there, we'll put in our password. I'll use SMS again. And we're connected to our target. And as you can see down the bottom right, we've got a maximum session duration that was set in DPA. I didn't change any of those settings. So we can do whatever we need to do. I'll just open up a few applications, just so there's something interesting in the recording, and I'll log off. And to view the recording of what we just did, we go to the application switcher here and we head over to audit, and we go to session monitoring, and we'll select this recent recording or event, and we can download the recording here and see all the information about the connection. And if we open up this recording, we can play it back. We'll just close that, and I'll head back to Privilege Cloud. So next I want to show you how we can access DPA as an end user. So if I open up a new browser incognito, and we'll log in as a new user called John, who's just a regular Privilege Cloud user. And I'm logged in as John, and I've created a personal privilege account for John, and you can see that John doesn't have access to the administration features of Privilege Cloud, and nor does John have access to the DPA tile here. So what we need to do is fix this and give John access to the DPA tile, or the end users. So I'll just close this because I will need to re-authenticate. And if I go to CyberArk Identity here, and we go to Roles, and we need to create a new role. The reason for that is we can't go to the Privilege Cloud users, which I'll just show you. And if we go to the members here, I've added in the Active Directory group that John's part of. But if we go to administrative rights here, we can't add a tile here for DPA. So I'll just get out of here and we'll make a new role and give it a name. So there's our name. We'll just save that. And we'll go to members here and we'll add in our group. There's our group. I'll just save that. And then we'll go to the administrative rights here. We'll hit add. And we'll type in show to just filter this down. And show dynamic privilege access tile. We'll tick that, hit add, save that. And if you're already logged in as that end user, you'll need to log off and log on again. So John's logged in, and we'll go to the application switcher up here and we'll switch to dynamic privilege access. And we'll select Vaulted Credentials. And we'll log on as john.admin to the DC1 and the target domain. I'll download the RDP file. And we'll be asked to authenticate. So I'll put in the password.
And we've done an MFA and we're logged in. So during that process, the user had to enter in their credentials again. We can make the user experience slightly better by disabling that requirement to re-authenticate, but you may choose to leave that turned on. So just disconnect that. And if we head back to Privilege Cloud and switch to DPA again, we can go to the settings here and we can enable this feature, RDP file, without a need to re-authenticate. What that does is when you connect via the connection guidance as a user, I'll just do that now. Just refresh this. And we'll connect again with Vaulted Credentials. And we'll download the RDP file. And you'll notice that we didn't provide the MFA again or re-authenticate. And we're logged in. So I'll show you why that happened. If I go to the latest RDP file that we downloaded, and we'll edit that with Notepad. And we can see there's a string here that is used. This string is temporary. So we try and use that RDP file again. You'll find that we'll have an error because we need to re-authenticate. So basically the user would have to re-download that file. And this is to ensure the file can only be used once. So I'll just close that. And I'll head back to Privilege Cloud. And I'll finish the video here. So today we've installed the DPA connectors on 2 of the Privilege Cloud connector servers. Then we configured the existing HTML5 Gateway setup to use DPA instead of the legacy secure tunnel format. It's important to remember that you need to set up your certificates on your connector servers to support the HTML5 Gateway. We did that in a previous video. And then we use DPA to connect to, in this case, DC1 using Vaulted Credentials. And then we configured in identity to allow the DPA access tile for the end users, such as John in this case, and we tested that and that could also connect. And that's where we got to. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.